Okay. We're on page, 210 or 212, Hillel? Okay.
Hold on, I got talking to Yoni, forgot to bring it out.
Yeah.
We are on page 211. No, we turned to 212, yeah.
212. So let's go. We're holding on top. We're talking about the Nefesh Abamis and the Yetzer Hara and the difference between subjugation, control, versus actual transformation. In Aramaic, and the words are iskafia versus ishapcha. Iskafia comes from the Hebrew word lakuf, to bend, to control. And ishapcha comes from the word lahafoch, to actually transform. Okay? So let's go. And the Rebbe now says, that, and he gave a beautiful example that when you have a wall, and you want the wall to fall down, to come down, and you give a setz the wall, that already loosens the strength of the wall, weakens the strength of the wall, and it's only a matter of time that the wall will fall down. So too, the first zetz is the most important thing. Good morning. It reminds me of a story that Mendel Futterfass would repeat. He would say, what do you think the Chasidim of the Mittler Rebbe? The Mittler Rebbe was, the Rebbe that taught very deep Chasidus. And some of his Chasidim were so deep and intellectual that he wrote entire Sfarim for them, and very difficult concepts. So the Mendel would repeat in the name of Chasidim, you think that they were all that way? Those were a select few, but the average Chassid was simple, and he expressed it this way, that the Chassidim of the Mittler Rebbe would say, I give you a zetz, and you give me a zetz. I give you a jab, and you give me a jab. And you know how you go into shul, and this guy tells you off, and you tell him off, and that's what a shtibel, and that's the way it is. That's the beauty of the Jewish shul, and especially the shtibel and all that. And then the Mittler Rebbe's chassid would say, and the question is, or he would say, not the question, he'd say, and I hope and wish that I'm the one giving him the last zetz. Who's going to give the last zetz? He or I? You understand? So here we're talking about a zetz, a banging a wall, giving a wall a good zetz. And here we're talking about not the last zetz, but the first zetz. The first breach in the wall already ostensibly has crushed the wall, although the wall's still standing. But the wall has been breached. By the way, that's why Asara B'Tevis, the next upcoming fast, is all about the breaching, right? The breaching of the wall. Is that Asara B'Tevis, or is that another one? No, Asara B'Tevis is they surrounded the wall. Anyway, let's go further. So that we learned. So let's go. We're talking now about so we spoke about a Yetzer Hara that's either cold or Nefesh Abamis is either cold or passionate, and transforming each. We learned that yesterday. The Hinek Siv, we're holding by the words V'zeu d'chsiv. V'zeu d'chsiv b'chol avavcha. The Chazal say, it says in the Shema, we just read it, with all of your heart. It should have said b'chol libcha. This is a Gemara with one beis. Avram, why does it say beis? Two bases, livavacha. Technically, the correct Hebrew word is libcha. Amar Azal, so the sages say, B'shnei Yitzrecha, b'Yetzer Tov v'Yetzer Hara. This is a reference that you have to serve a God and love God, not only from the heart that's called the Yetzer Tov heart, but you also have to make the Yetzer Hara somehow love Hashem too. Shezeu Avodah the Krishma. This is in essence the service of Shema. Shegam Yetzer Hara Yishuv Lav Hashem. Yoshuv Lav Hashem. That also the Yetzer Hara should return to the love of God. And then is when we have what's called Shleimus completion. שהרי הנפש הבא מן היצר הרע לבדו, וראיה הוא ודאי, שהנפש הבא מן היצר הרע לבדו, ודאי הוא בלי שלמוס. Sorry. The nefesh habamis and the Yetzer Hara alone don't have completion, are not complete. That's not a novelty, that's simple. Ach gam ha-nefesh elokis. You would think the nefesh elokis on its own is complete, says the Rebbe. No. Ach gam ha-nefesh elokis levadoi, af gam kumashu l'maylo, terem yiridos lemate. Even the way the soul, the neshama, before it came into this world. Look at this. This is a chiddush. Ein a chiddush lemus adayin. Moshe, this neshama is all good, it's pure. What does the Rebbe say here? Before it descended into a body, it was not shleimut. It was not complete. The nefesh v'gufim bedugmas tchar v'nukva. The Rebbe says the soul and the body are comparable to a male and female. Just like a male, levad, alone, who plagufa is a half of a body, is missing his other half, nefesh, guf, soul to the soul, without its body, eine prina shleimus is not complete. Valzehu zehiras zridus yiridus hadeshama lemato leslabish guf, and that's why the soul was sent below to invest itself in a body. Kibiyesa lemailo. Because while the neshama was above, it was not complete. Mikosh came, surely when it descends below, if the soul is here, and all it does is it works on its own spirituality, and it has no interest in its body, that's not completion. If you hear it over here, if you sit in a corner and you learn day and night, which is like soul-like, and you don't elevate the world around you, your neshama is not b'shleimus. You're doing a great thing, but you're not doing the greatest thing. The greatest thing is to have your learning transform the world too. Of course, the Litvische world will disagree with this, where they say just to learn is the best thing for your neshama. But Chasidis, the Baal Shem Tov, disagrees. This is not just a previous Rebbe writing this. This is based on the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. And we're coming from Yutas Kislev. This is a fundamental difference between pre-Baal Shem Tov and post-Baal Shem Tov. This that we just learned here is one of the major differences and a very important one. And everyone should decide what they think is right and what they want to follow. But this is the fact. To go say that the soul without a body is not b'shleimus is a heavy statement. In other words, of course, a soul has to come into a body, but once you come into the body, what's your interest in the body? And one approach is no interest. Exclude the body. You just be spiritual. You be holy. You learn day and night, and that's it. Forget about anything around you. Forget about... Comes along the Baal Shem Tov and says, if we do that, the body that God gave us will come to haunt us. And one day you will revert back. And today you see it so common, especially with younger people, where they go on a trip and they get excited and they can go to Eretz Yisrael and it lasts for a while and they come back and they revert back to their own self because they weren't taught to integrate properly their spirituality with their physicality and material world, and there becomes a dichotomy, and ultimately, you know who wins? The material world wins, the goof wins, the world wins. And we have a lot of problems because of that. You know, the other example is, I remember there was a student in Chabad in the 80s he was a genius, he had a phenomenal memory. He wants to join the Kloisenberg Rebbe organized an organization called Mifal Hashas, where over the course, I think, of 3 years, you learn by heart the entire Shas. So, of course, for very, very good heads with memories and all that. And he decided he wants to do it. And he was on his way, or maybe he did it, but he cracked up. He had a breakdown. Now, I'm not the professional to tell you that's because of that, because he didn't sleep much, he didn't eat much. Maybe it was, genetics. But the point is, it didn't help the situation. When you go to an extreme and you don't integrate it with the world around you, you're looking for a lot of trouble. That has to be, you have to be very careful not to go that approach. The Rambam does write that in order to get rid of an ugly character trait, you have to go to the other extreme. But he writes clearly it's temporarily, right? And then you got to go back to the derech hamitzua, to the middle path. So clearly, what is the objective? The middle path, not the extreme. Now, if you ask that to a Ger Chassid, the real Ger Chasidim, who identify with Kotsk, the Kotzker Rebbe would say, whoever is in the middle and not an extremist is like a horse walking in the middle of the road. So you want to be a horse, walk in the middle. But that's not the shita of most other Yidden, Chassidim and non-Chassidim, etc. So we always had in Judaism and in Hasidism, we always had individuals who were very powerful who called for extreme measures. But even today, now you probably know there's been a breakup in the Ger movement. For so many years, Ger was all one. Finally, they also joined the two Rebbe system, which is very common today. There's only one or two other groups, Skver and Bells, that are still holding out. And the word on the street is that after their Rebbe's pass on, there probably will be, peacefully or not peacefully, there'll be a two Rebbe system, a multi-Rebbe system, like they have in Vishnitz. Where
Is it peaceful in Ger?
Oh no, come on. It's,
I'm asking, I don't know.
it is as worse, as bad as it gets. It is terrible. Hey, one second. I mean, when Satmar split and the two Rebbes, I don't think it was even as bad as it is now. They're literally ostracizing people and forcing people and throwing kids and teachers out of schools. The new Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Shaul Alter, he came to Brooklyn 2-3 weeks ago. There were 10,000 people that came to participate in his Malava Malka. And they had to have police outside, not just, for safety, but so that the opponents shouldn't make trouble. So it's really become very ugly. It breaks my heart. It's terrible. It's really terrible. And I spoke about this in one of my clips. We live in a liberated world, and in a Jewish liberated world. And if there's a group that wants to take someone and make him their Rosh Hashiva and even their Rebbe, they have free will. Anyway, now Moshe, it's your turn. Okay, he's busy. Let's go back to the text. So he's saying, Ki halo izeu echad mitaymei yiridus haneshama beguf. This is one of the reasons why the soul came into a body, b'shvil levara losakas nefesh habamis, in order to refine the nefesh habamis. V'kashem esachdim al yidei ha'aveda. And when we do that, we create unity through serving God. Da'ainu. Nefesh habamis nichol b'nefesh elikiz. The nefesh habamis is incorporated in nefesh elikiz. Ozu hashleimus. Then you have completion, wholesomeness. V'zeu v'shavosel ovecha. Now here, Chavre, the Rebbe is using this idea to explain the second part of the pasuk of the verse in verse Chanan. Vyadata hayoim. You shall know today. So we spoke at length about vyadata hayoim, about both words. Now he's focusing v'hashevoisa elu avecha. You should make your heart be attentive. So look what he says. V'zeu v'ashevoisei l'revecha ki Hashem u'lekim. Dal yidei sachtus, the beis levavis. When you bring together and unite the two hearts, i.e. the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, the ozu hashlemus, which is the complete, wholesome picture, in the oz teida gamkein, then you should also know ki Hashem hu elikim. In other words, v'hashevoisa means pay attention, but it's referring not to, listen to this, not just to vyadata, the mind, knowing. It's referring to the practice of bringing Yetzer Nefesh Habamis and Nefesh Elikis together, to unite them. So the Rebbe is teaching a wonderful lesson. The first concept of vyadata, you shall know, refers to understanding, studying and understanding that Hashem hu elikim. V'hashevoisa, the next words, and make your eloavecha, make your heart be attentive, means take your heart, livavecha, which has two bases, Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, right? V'hashevoisa, and make them be attentive by uniting them. Beautiful, beautiful taich. Let's continue. And he says, the beis levava is when you bring the two hearts together, the oz shleimus, then you have completion. Then you will also know ki Hashem hu elikim. I don't know if he's alluding to, but to me it also sounds like he's saying, Hillel, then you'll know that Hashem hu elikim, because Hashem and elikim is also like two opposites. Elokim is teva, nature. Hashem, Yudke Vavke, supernatural. So when will you know that Hashem hu Elokim? When you yourself will do a similar act to Hashem Elokim, bringing the Nefesh Habamis and the Nefesh Elikis together. Yes, Hillel.
Also, we see in the Navi that we read on Hanukkah, the nevuah of taking the stick, one says Yehuda and one says Yosef, and uniting them as one. It's a very similar kind of idea about kind of a shleimus of the Jewish people.
Yes, correct. There are Maimarim of the Rabbeim, starting with the Alter Rebbe on that pasuk. Let me just finish the line. Nimtza moving. We understand from this. The b'chol inyan nefesh habamis v'yetzer hara u'b'shvilo avodah v'bitter. That why did Hashem give us this headache? God, why do you have to give us a Yetzer Hara and a Nefesh Habamis? I like you. I want to serve you. just keep me. Why do I need these temptations? Says the Rebbe, the whole reason is to be mevarer, to refine the world. Take the world we're in and make it holy. Holify the world. Sanctify the world. Then you have shleimus. If you don't do that, you don't have shleimus. You might bring very nice things, but you need to, there's a Gemara. The Gemara says, Ashrei mi sheba lekan, lucky is the one that comes here to Gan Eden, v'talmudei biyodei, and is learning in his hand. So, the joke is, bring along your Gemara. Learn Daf HaYomi and bring along your Gemara when you go to Gan Eden after 120. You'll say to God in heaven, hey, let me into Gan Eden because I have my Gemara here. I studied Daf HaYomi. And that's a nice word.
The same is true on the buses here.
Even they give you a seat if you have a Gemara in your hand. Anyway. But the Talmudei, Moshe, the Talmudei means, and your study, you're learning, not just your Talmud. Doesn't mean Talmud, it means you're learning. What do you mean for Talmudei biyodei? Why is your learning in your hand a cause to get an entryway into paradise, to Gan Eden? So one of the explanations is because the Talmudei is biyodei. You have to look at the word biyodei. It's in your hand. You've taken the learning and you've transformed your hand. Hand represents action, maisa, deed, work. V'talmudei biyodei. You learned Torah so much that you transformed your deeds, your action. Oh, If so, I'm letting you into Gan Eden. You hear that? Frankly, the taich came to me right now as I'm teaching you. I never thought of it, but I love it. I think it's, yes, Moshe, what?
So I'm sorry, I'm just looking in the text, and the Talmudo. Where do we see? Is that?
No, it's not. It's not here. No, it's not here. No. I'm using that as an example. It's not in the text in the Mimer. In the Mimer, we just finished learning, Moshe, that again, very important, that if you're not mevarer and mesakin, if you don't refine the guf through your neshama, he says over and over here, einay b'shleimus. That's what the previous Rebbe cites here. And I mentioned earlier that not everyone would agree to that, right? And so, but I'm elaborating as an example. I'm using another Chazal as an example to support this idea. The Gemara says elsewhere, Ashrei mi shebo lekan. Lucky is the man who comes here, referring to Gan Eden, after 120, and v'talmudei biyadei, and his learning is with him. So in other words, he gets in and he's able to continue his learning. That's the simple meaning of that Chazal. Then I said also the little joke about the about the Daf HaYomi. But then I interpreted my own thought that just came to me is, why is Ashrei? Why are you lucky you're lucky to get in and to be there because your learning is with you? So I said because the Talmudai biyodo is you coming along with your learning in your hand. Hand symbolizes deed, work, action, gashmius, body. The Talmudai biyodai, your learning has transformed your deed and your action, your hand, and that's why it's Ashrei. In other words, to support what we just said now, if you would come along with just a soul, just a neshama, and forget about refining the world around you, it wouldn't be Ashrei. The ultimate of Ashrei, of pleasure, of holy pleasure, is when you transform Gashmius to Ruchnius. And that's why God sent the soul into the body, the neshama into the guf. Hashem had a great time with souls. He didn't need... The reason why he wants them here is just because ultimately they don't bring me pleasure. Angels don't bring me pleasure. Souls descending into a body don't bring me pleasure. They're all nice fascinations. Moshe, you wanted to say something earlier when I was talking about the Gerer and all that. I saw your hand went up.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, my wife called me. I wanted to ask I think I had heard something about Ger, but I haven't heard about it for a while. And I didn't realize, I thought there was only one, at the current moment, I thought there was only one Rebbe. Was it Shaul Alter?
The Rebbe, the Rebbe of Ger that's been the Rebbe for 25 years, for many years, is Rabbi Yaakov Alter, Rabbi Yankel Alter, and that's the establishment. A few years ago, a group of 250 people, which is funny because it says that Korach and his people were 250 people that rebelled. So 250 people or members or whatever took their Rosh Hashiva. Reb Shaul Alter is a goy noilam. He's a tremendous Talmud Chacham, and he's a fantastic speaker, and he's like a Chabadnik, really just open and forthright and no shtick to him, If you look at some of the videos, how he finishes a talk, he says, and he says, finish goodbye, and he walks up. He doesn't make no, shtick. You know what I'm saying? He's very down to earth. So they appointed him as the rabbi of a new shul that they made, and ultimately they really consider him their Rebbe. That's what I was referring to. And it's so interesting to me that you're sitting in Bet Shemesh, and I know I'm here in America, and I know so much more about him. Anyway, yeah, it's really, to me, it's a shanda. I'm sorry to say, it's a real shame. I can understand the split up, but what's going on? You can't imagine.
So is the issue that some of his people are calling him their Rebbe, and disciples of the current Rebbe are objecting to that as like a breakaway?
Yeah, but Hillel, not even if they're calling him a Rebbe, the fact that they broke away, and they're basically, in other words, whether you call him a Rebbe, a rabbi, a Rav, that's semantics to them, I think, at this point. But of course, the Rebbe concept is the ultimate, But the fact that they broke away, in other words, the establishment had everyone under them, everyone, even though many were not happy. What happened is when Reb Yaakov became the Rebbe, slowly but surely he eliminated the deep study called Iyun. We learned this in our Maimorim, Le'ayin, right. Iyun. Yeah. He eliminated pretty much Iyun study by in the yeshivas. He said that today's generation, you need to cover more ground, and they're not equipped. Of course, there's always individuals. And Ger, the system of learning going back 150 years, was always very deep analysis. Different than Lithuanian, but in their approach, they were very, Iyun. Yeah. And all of a sudden, he comes and says, no. So he's changing. They felt the Masorah, their own Masorah. They felt that he's changing. So that upset a lot of people. Then there was an issue of, do you encourage newly married Ger Hasidim to stay in Chutz La'aretz or come back to Eretz Yisrael? And he voted.
These are people who had come from Eretz Yisrael and had gone to learn in the States. You're saying
not gone to learn. Somehow they married an American or an Australian or an English. They married a spouse that was from Chutz La'aretz. So I believe he gave an instruction that they should not come back. They should stay in America or at Chutz La'aretz and be part of the. What?
That was one of the people that was killed in Meron. He was from Borough Park. He was from Borough Park, but the parents were from Israel. They were Ger Hasidim that moved to Borough Park, and something that the parents didn't come to Eretz Yisrael it was too painful for them or something like that, so they wound up doing the Levaya in Borough Park.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that. I hear you, but I don't know about that. I'm talking about the Shita, whether newly married Ger Chosid who marries an American or an Australian, etc., or Canadian, Chutz La'aretz, should they come back or should they stay in where they are and be part of the Ger Hasid is there? And until this Reb Yaakov, the Shita was, you come back here. You come back to Eretz Yisrael. This is where we are. This is where Ger Hasidus is. The fact that you have a shtibel here and there are for those that are, from the ones that were Americans or Europeans that were saved after the war and they stayed in America. But the real Hasidim, especially the newly married guys, you belong in Eretz Yisrael. And he said no. He said stay there and build their community, and that outraged a lot of people. So that's number two. Number two, why many people are unhappy. And finally, this Reb Shaul Alter, who's such a Talmud Chacham, such a goyin, he puts the Rebbe in his little back pocket, and he puts most Rebbes in his back pocket. He's a goyin, okay? Someone wrote the other day he's number 6 in learning in Eretz Yisrael. I don't know how they know who's 1, 2, 3, but he's on top. And I was in Rechavia one Shabbos, over the years, and the place was swamped in the Kal Hasidim Shul over there in Shari Chesed, and because he was the guest speaker. I'm telling you, you couldn't get through. He's so popular. He's a great speaker. He's down to earth. He makes, people like him. He's just good. You know what I'm saying? He's easy. So that's so, and they didn't invite him to family weddings. They mamish, did, and he kept quiet for years, and he still kept quiet. But his followers, who were Talmidim of his, said, our Rosh Hashiva is getting abused. Enough. And they said, that's it. That's it. So 2-3 years ago, they decided to make their own minyan for Simchas Torah, and the rest is history. You can't imagine. He was received by all the Rebbes in Brooklyn, in Monsey, Satmar, Vishnitz, this, that, and no one blinked an eye that what's the real Ger going to say. Everyone rolled out the carpet, and he probably raised a lot of money. They're building their own yeshivas in Yerushalayim, own buildings, own cheders. It's already a complete break. People have asked me, even, like, is it right? In other words, from a philosophical shita perspective, if you belong to a Hasidus, whether you like it or not, do you have a right to break away? It's a good question. No, if you don't belong to the Hasidus, then you can do what you want. But if you identify, who is to decide that a breakaway is acceptable or not acceptable? The simple answer is it's not. Why? Because the Rebbe figure in a Hasidic movement, it starts from on top and it goes down. On the other hand, right? Ein melech below am. A king is not a king unless he has subjects, a nation, people. Let's talk about our Rebbe, right? Our Rebbe had no interest in being a Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was he wanted to sit and learn and help people quietly, but he worked for the office, Kahos, Merkis. He did things for Chabad, very important things. Hasidim forced him, in a sense, to become Rebbe. And they put pressure. And you know what I'm saying? So it took, and especially the young guys, the soldiers, went out and publicized, and like they do today in their own way, in different things. So if not for the people, he wouldn't be Rebbe. He didn't want to be Rebbe. But once you have a Rebbe in the Hasidic world, in the Baal Shem Tov world, the Rebbe is the one that establishes law and order. So if that's the case, one second, Yonis, if that's the case, even though there was these things that I told you about before, about the Ger Rebbe and the complaints and the issues, is it right for them to establish a new Rebbe? So you see, so here, Hillel, is where the issue of Rebbe versus Rav is very important. To have another shula breakaway, that I could see. But, but to say you're choosing and making a person a new Ger Rebbe, that's a much more serious philosophical issue. Okay, Yonason, what do you say?
I just want to ask, is he from, the name Alton was the name of the Chadushei Rim and the Sas Emes?
Yes.
Is he
yes,
they
are all great grandchildren.
Yeah.
They were different brothers. It's all family. Yes, Yonason.
Now, what happened with the Satmar?
Yeah, well, look, the Satmar Rebbe, Reb Yoel Teitelbaum, who passed on, it's 1979, which is interesting. We're talking about it. Today is the day he was saved from the Nazis. Today, Chof Aleph Kislev. You know the joke that they say in Satmar. Hasidus lasted for 2 days. Yutes Kislev, the Balatanya, was released from jail, so we celebrate Hasidism. So it lasted Yutes and Chof. And today, Chof Aleph, when we celebrate the Satmar Rebbe, who said the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov has been forgotten, and we really don't know what Chassidus is, so how long did it last from your test to Chof Aleph?
Never heard that.
Yeah, well, it's around here, it's common.
There's a kind of a split going on also in Sadigur.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I don't know if it's a
in a moment, I just want to finish responding to Yonason. So after the Satmar Rav Yoel passed away in 79, his nephew, known as Rav Moshe, he was called Rav Moshe Teitelbaum, he was called the Siget Rav, the Rav from Siget. He was appointed, and that was also a major machlekes between the real staunch students of the Satmar Rebbe, the Rebbetzin Fege. They wanted the Rebbetzin to continue functioning as the Satmar Rebbe, and most Chassidim didn't. Yeah. Not, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, that was one that happened in 1980. You know, it was a lot of controversy then. And then when he passed away, he had two sons, Aaron and Zalman. They're called the Zalmans and the Aronim and the Zalmonim. That's the way they're called.
Is that really?
Yeah. And guess what? Now, I can't say, they're pretty much at peace. They're people, and each one has thousands, 10, 20,000 chassidim, and they have meisters and everything else. But yes, there was a split, and there still is, some ill feeling, but it's not the fight, but it was at the time a big vikuach, a big, and now Ger's going through it. Now, going back to Sadigur. So, God bless the Sadigur Rebbe that suddenly passed away. He was a young man, I think in the 70s. And he... 60s? I think Moshe knows a little bit because I think Rabbi, the Rav, his
son married the daughter of the Rebbe.
Right, okay. So he left a will, and in his will he says that he wants his youngest son. He had 4 or 5 sons and sons. He left a will that he should be the Rebbe. And that alarmed everyone. And you look at him, he's a young man. He could be as a good man and a holy man. But, it's very shocking. So naturally, it's not going to be accepted by everyone. And there's been din Torahs, and it's, again, but at least you have to understand, Sadigur is I think, tell me if I'm wrong, it's not as big as Ger. You understand? Yes, they have a few. One second, Moshe. They have a few, yeshivas. In other words, it's not ugly. You know what I'm saying? Okay, if they have a disagreement, they're going to court and to Beis Din, and they'll work it out. But here, I mean, you can't imagine the terrorism, what they do to families, cutting off their lifeline, telling grandkids not to talk to their grandfathers. Do you know what that means? Yes, Moshe.
Yeah, just regarding Sadigur, I think what happened in the end is the youngest son is the Rebbe, I think in Bnei Brak, I think. One of the sons, they decided to become a Rebbe, I think in London, and one of the sons, a Rebbe in Yerushalayim.
Uh-huh.
I believe that's what was. It's just interesting because I just happened to spend a little bit of time with Rav Shapiro, with the Piazetzner Rebbe's son on Sunday. We happened to go together to a Hakamas Matzeva in Yerushalayim for one of the people in the shul, and we spent a little bit of time talking actually. So he mentioned it came up in conversation what I'm sharing with you now.
So it's quieted down. You're saying.
I got that impression. I definitely got that impression.
Well, Halavai would be that way in Ger. Boviv in Brooklyn also had a major split, but it's pretty much now under control. There's and I daven in sometimes in the Boviv shul, which there are people from both factions. But there's no you know what I'm saying. And in Ger, they'll get over it, but right now it's really not nice. Inflamed. I mean, you know, it. You know how we got to this conversation? Why I mentioned it? Because it's not part of the Shia. Because we were learning about, the extremism that the Kotzker Rebbe said. If you walk in the middle of the road, you're like a horse. A horse walks in the middle of the road, but he believed you should be an extremist. So that made me think about this extremism is where, you become terroristic. You become, you go all out. You don't give room. And I think it's very important for us in our lives and with families and friends and people to understand there are such people and there are such situations. And you have to assess the situation properly. In other words, if you talk to someone who is an extremist by nature, and you suggest a middle of the road path, for them it's not going to work. For most people it'll work, but by nature they can only exist in an extreme form. You're a social worker. I just think of it. Because some people, they just don't. They don't know. I was Farbrengen the other night in Hollywood, Florida, with a friend. A friend, meaning we were together in Camp Gan Yisrael in the Parksville, New York, in the Catskills in the 70s. We learned in different Lubavitch yeshivas, but we know each other. Our parents were friends, and I'm sitting there, and he bought a few of my books, and then he saw my book on Chabad and Ponovich. So he turned to me and says, "This is too much for me. This I can't take." Torah Vadas and Lubavitch, I can still swallow. But Ponovich and Chabad, I can't. And then a few things during the Farbrengen, he said quietly to me, and I see that, he hasn't been able to make a shift in who he is, which is who he is. And I'm looking at him, both the same age, grew up in the same kind of culture, and yet I was that way. I understand that extremism and that zealotry. But when you go out and you teach and you travel and you meet people and you want to do what it says in the Mimer, you want to elevate the world to bring to Mashiach and Hashem, you gotta calm down. I remember, tell you a personal story. When I came to Marin County in 1984, I came out of 770. I was 23 years old, newly married. 4 months after we were married, my wife and I, we went on shlichus. And we had a group of Bali Tshuva, former Brooklynites, and they became Bali Tshuva and some others. And it was a real nice group and interested in learning. And so for me, for a new shliach, this is God sent. That's what you want, right? You want to teach. You want to be mashpia. And there was an event. And no, this was in shul once. I think on Simchas Torah. I forget when. One of these people was davening Shemon Esrei, and his feet were like this. Halacha says that we stand Shemon Esrei, your feet are supposed to be together because we're like a malach who has 1 foot, right? So the placing of the feet together is like this, shouldn't be like that. Which, by the way, a lot of people in Brooklyn don't do it. I can never understand. And I've asked them, you guys know the halacha, put your feet together. Because to them, I can speak that way. And whatever, they don't do it. So I went over to this congregant, and nicely, I just, with my foot, tapped his shoe to move it over, kind of, And after Shemon Esrei, after davening, he came over to me. He was very upset. Like, why are you doing that, Rabbi? And I was coming from a good place. I was trying to help him be more religious. He took it as an insult. You're embarrassing me in front of everyone else. And I remember I had this discussion with my wife after this happened. And my wife said to me, you're not in 770. You're not in Brooklyn. You're not in Geula or Meir Shorim. You're dealing here. Yes, they're Bali Tshuva, but they don't know any better. You got to really slow down. Yes.
Forgive me. I'm sorry. I have someone I have to meet now. Forgive me. I'm going to go. Forgive me.
I gotta go too.
Have a good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, everyone. See everyone till next week. Monday.
Yeah,
Thank
have
you.
a great Shabbos, everybody.
And have a great Hanukkah Sunday. We will learn Monday. Okay? Sei gesund. Take care. Bye bye.